We're gonna have a really, really good time. Talking about things that make us laugh and make us feel alive. Red noses and silly hats, big old cars on wild tracks. Let's just talk about clowns and coasters.
Hey.
Hey. Oh, I'm.
Okay, welcome back to Clowns and Coasters. Thank you for tuning in to episode 2. I'm Kyle Anderson.
I'm Alex Prather.
And we're going to talk about clowns and coasters. Alex is a clown. I am a coaster and roller coaster enthusiast. Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about it. Let's start with reviewing our week's work.
All right, Alex.
I was supposed to finish my book. I finished my book.
That's good.
It's nice.
How was it?
Oh, it was really interesting. It ended in an odd way.
Tell us the book again.
It's Clown Training: A Practical Guide.
Nice.
By John Davison, who's a clown for the last 30 years and has taught and performed and all kinds of stuff.
Cool. What kind of practices did you
learn? The first half is about learning how to clown, and then the second half is about how to come up with material to do a show. But by the end he started talking about ways to do clowning as oh, what was it? It was so weird.
So Alex is getting the book. He has it very neatly and meticulously highlighted, and he's thumbing through
clown
the pages.
Activism. He started talking about clown activism.
Yes, tell me.
And how there was a thing in the early 2000s that I haven't researched. I'm going to, so I can. It's I don't even know, but it was called the Clown Insurgent Rebel Clown Army, or Circa, and they would go at one point not accidentally they shut down a army recruitment center by just having a bunch of clowns say they wanted to sign up. But it was so chaotic because they were clowns that it just shut down a whole recruitment center.
So what were they?
I don't know.
Was there a message other than just?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there was. I haven't researched it, so I don't know what it. Anyway, so he started talking about that, which just kind of blew my mind.
Clown.
But then the very
activism.
last, right? But then the last bit of it was basically just he was it doesn't really matter where or how you clown. Clowning is just good. I hope you enjoyed your book. And it was really nice.
Nice.
So.
Well, that's
it was good. It was solid.
That's good. That sounds awesome. You should become a clown activist. I would love to see that.
I know you would.
So what would you? I don't even know. How does being a clown? There's got to be a way that could work in your advantage, in some kind of protest or activism. Being a clown, how would you go about that? I don't know.
He describes how to go about it. It's fascinating.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well.
So anyway, I finished my book, so that's a win for the week.
And I look forward to future episodes.
Yeah.
You
were supposed to study.
I was supposed to study. I did do a lot of studying.
Did you study?
I did. I haven't
you did a lot of studying.
I didn't actually sign up for the drone pilot's exam, but I did do a lot of studying. So I feel.
But your week's work wasn't to sign up. Your week's work was to be confident enough to sign up.
Pretty much, yeah. Because I was really
success.
Coming into that very cold, and the first time I watched some tutorials and read some practice stats, I was like, oh, this is a lot different. This is not about. It's really about drone safety and what has a lot to do with the not FCC, the aviation, FAA, federal, FAA, those rules and classifying airspace grade or class. What class of airspace? Class B, C, and how wildly different all those are. And now I'm forgetting where exactly they go. I'm going to have to study again. But it's
Oh, I'm so glad I don't have to take tests anymore.
Yes, that's what I realized. Like,
Jeez.
as I got into this, I got a little sidetracked. I had a dog sitting gig that I was doing in Chicago. So that kind of sprung up unexpectedly. So I didn't get to study as in-depth as I would have liked, but it was very enlightening and also made me, the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Tell me about it.
Oh, yeah. So, probably right before I started, I'd be like, I can do this. This will be fine. I'll do that. I know about drones. I've flown them around. And then you get just, a little bit, and it's like that graph starts to go down. It's like, oh, I quickly became aware of how vastly ignorant I am of all of this. So my confidence went way down. But it's going to go up, as the Dunning-Kruger effect does. So I was definitely I'm an expert, even though I know nothing. And then I started to learn more, and I quickly realized how little I know, which I think is the right, process. So
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So yeah, definitely I think by this week, learning
Sure.
learning a lot, learning it quickly. But I did practice some drone moves. Because that's the fun part, that's what you got to do.
Sure.
So right now, and I'm going to try this later, and it's going to be fun. I am allowed to do this. So my fiance is house sitting at this apartment that's on the top floor of this building about 4 blocks away. I want to fly my drone from my apartment, from my balcony to their balcony, and land it. I don't know why, but that sounds really fun and cool to me.
Okay.
So, take it on a journey and send it somewhere. I don't know. That's cool. Because right now I've just been practicing, having it follow me and, doing shots around buildings because I want to do real estate videography. But I haven't, sent it off and, landed it as if it were,
Sure.
a delivery drone. That sounds cool.
Jeez.
I don't know why. That
Sounds-
sounds really fun to me.
Super stressful to me.
Yeah, it is. Because it's
I support
very
you, though.
expensive, and I'm going over a city. And
Yeah.
But I was looking at it, but I was like, I can pretty much see our building from the balcony of the other building. So I would have a relatively decent line of sight. And it's, they're supposed to be able to go, multiple miles. It's not even a quarter mile away, so.
And that's legal?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
cool.
pretty much if you stay I could be wrong on this, and I'm gonna come back next week, and I'm gonna
You're gonna come back. Drone has been
don't
taken.
trust me yet, but
You're-
basically from and DJI is really good about telling you. In fact, a couple weeks ago, I took it to Wisconsin. I was in Madison, actually where my mom grew up, the house, and I tried to just fly it around the little park across the street from the house she grew up in. Adorable, by the way. It's a cute little house in Madison. And tried to fly it at the little park, and it went told me, it's hey, you're not in a good area. There's an airport nearby, or it's said this was a restricted area. So that's nice that it tells me. So
That is nice.
yeah, unless you're unless you're pretty close to an airport, you can stay under 400 feet. Most places, as long as you're under 400 feet. And then if you go above that, you better be avoiding an obstacle or something. And then if you do, you have to do a whole thing with the FAA. It's very involved. I'm learning a lot. Whew. A lot.
Well, good for you.
Thanks.
I consider that a win for your week's work. So,
thank you very much.
a round of applause for us.
Yeah. So let's move on to some hot topics.
Are we doing hot? Okay, last week we did hot topics at the end.
Oh.
I thought they were going to be at the front. Where do you want to do hot topics?
Oh.
Let's talk about it on what's it called when you talk about production meeting?
Production meeting, yeah. We could pause for a production meeting, or we could keep it going. But
You can keep it going real quick.
in
Do you
the
want to do it
little-
at the beginning or the end?
I mean, in the shared doc, it's the next thing on the list. So
That's true. You just want to hit it?
that's kind of how I was going. Let's just go. Let's go. Hot
Let's
topics.
just hit it. Okay, hot topics.
Hot topics.
Hot
Hey,
topics.
Hot
Woo,
topics.
roller
About
mix.
some clown stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, about some roller coaster stuff.
know.
Let's go.
That's all I
Hot
got.
topics.
Hot topics. That was nice.
All right. Go.
Me first?
Sure.
Okay, so this is a pretty short hot topic, it's yeah, there's not much to say about it, but
That's okay.
so the founder of Cirque du Soleil, Guy
Yes.
Guy Laliberté,
All right.
sold all his stock.
Sold all of it?
Yeah, like he's still involved, I think, but like he's not. He's like, I don't think he's an owner anymore. Let's see.
What?
Yeah. The Quai des Dépôts et Placement du Québec says it's buying La Liberté's remaining 10% stake in Cirque du Soleil Entertainment Group.
Huh. Did
So,
you say why?
no.
No.
It says he'll be in the offices to review the content of new show we're preparing. His commitment remains intact. But yeah,
Huh.
he says he is happy his stock is going to Quebec's interests because Quebec owns he sold it to Quebec.
Oh.
So
Oh. Well,
I don't know.
good for him.
It's a thing. It's
That's
interesting.
cool. What are your thoughts on Cirque du Soleil? Do you know much about their?
I haven't gotten to watch much about it.
Because I know there's.
You know what?
I listened to. There's a podcast where I've heard a guest, R.J. Young, was on the Matt Mattingly's Ice Cream Social podcast. I guess I'll give him a shout out.
What?
Yeah, they're improvisers out of Las Vegas, and they had a guest on. It's been a while. R.J. Young, who was a clown in one of the Cirque shows, and he played like a big baby.
Yeah, you know, like you do.
I don't know. That's really all I remember about it. I don't know. Do you?
Sure.
Would you want to be a big baby in a Cirque show?
I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, if you get the opportunity to do a Cirque show, I feel like you at least spend a little time on it.
Yeah, that's probably a good
Because that's
paycheck.
like well, it's probably a good paycheck, but it's also like the most acceptable form of circus in the world right now. Like, because circuses are not as popular.
Do you know anything about Blue Man Group?
I know some. Yeah,
Okay, because now I'm thinking about it. Those are
they are. Yeah,
Very
no, they're
clown-like.
trained. No, they're trained in clown a lot of the time. They like. Because what they'll do is, because a lot of people assume that they're musicians and then they learn how to do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times it's clowns that are taught how to drum once they get in there.
I could
like,
totally
you start
see
as
that.
a clown, yeah.
because they do that thing. They make things inconvenient. Or how did you describe it? I'm sorry.
I don't remember.
They may, yeah, they seem to make music in very inconvenient and not obvious ways.
Yeah.
Which seems to be a clowning thing, from what I got.
Yeah, no, from what I've read, a lot of them start in clown and then make their way to Blue Man Group.
Oh, that's cool.
So.
Huh.
So yeah.
All right.
What's
Cirque
your
du
hot
Soleil.
topic?
Oh, my hot topic. This is kind of a current news thing. The amusement parks, Indiana Beach and Fantasy Island. Fantasy Island is in Buffalo, and Indiana Beach is in Indiana. It's kind of northeastern Indiana. It's actually, I'm very sad about this, but it's less than 3 hours from where I live in Chicago. Less than a 3 hour drive. They are both closing. Very sadly. Indiana Beach is, that's the one I'm really sad about because it's so close. But also, it's just an interesting boardwalk style park on this lake in Indiana, and what makes it look so freaking cool is they do that thing where they're very limited on space, so they have to be creative on how they put their rides into this park, and I love that. I love when places get really creative. And so they have a good collection of wooden roller coasters, an interesting steel roller coaster that is like hard to describe but looks wacky, and
Wacky.
yeah, Indiana Hoosier is the name of their big wooden roller coaster, and it's closing down. It's been around for like 90 years. And
Wow.
they apparently the parent company couldn't find a buyer for the park. Now there is some possible good news. There has been obviously a lot of outcry, and maybe that was strategic on their part. I don't know.
Sure.
But there's going to be a gathering next Saturday, which I'm probably going to go to.
What?
At Indiana Beach, and there is a possible buyer that I'm hoping. This is a rumor. Don't know anything about this, but I think the company Fun Spot, or I don't know if it's the company, but there's a chain of small parks in like the Orlando and like southern states. I think Atlanta's got one called Fun Spot. There's Fun Spot Orlando, Fun Spot Kissimmee, Florida, I think, and one in near Atlanta that I know of. I think there might be some more, but those are the big ones. They their thing is they're like I don't know, is Celebration Station a national chain? I don't know. There's one in Oklahoma City, Celebration Station. It's like imagine that, you know, it's got batting cages, it's got bumper boats, it's got, you know,
Sure.
go-karts. Imagine a place like that, but on like a much bigger scale. That seems to kind of be their thing. These small parks that, you know,
Sure.
have go-karts, but they'll also have a couple roller coasters if they can fit them in there. The one in Orlando is very well known. It's got very good wooden roller coaster. I believe it's made by Great Coasters International. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's possibly Gravity Group. Don't quote me on that. Doesn't matter. They do.
I wasn't
was
going
to. Doesn't matter. I need to move on because the point is they do a really good job. They're very highly regarded. I haven't been to any of the parks, but from what I hear, they do a really good job. So I think that would be an excellent buyer because Indiana Beach
Amazing.
is a small space, and they seem to do well with that. So yes, I'm really hoping I will try to be at the rally next Saturday, I believe, at Indiana Beach because I want to save that park. I'm really upset because I live so
Yeah.
close. So
And you never went.
Kind of took it for granted that, you know, eventually I'll be able to go, and now I might not, and that makes me sad.
Yeah, that's sad.
So let's save Indiana Beach.
What? Save Indiana Beach. Put it on the screen.
Save Indiana Beach. Yeah.
So,
I might dig for a link.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Those were hot topics.
Not cool, but
No. It's interesting.
but
Money.
interesting.
All money things.
Current.
But it's an interesting point because, because for both of us, I think roller coasters or theme parks and clowning / circus, like, money's not great in those things. Like,
Not all the time, no.
not all the time. Like obviously money in clown isn't ever tremendous, especially when It 2 comes out. But,
Yeah.
but it's just like it's an interesting comparison to make between these two things that don't look like they have a lot in
No,
common.
it is because there is definitely a trend now. I think smaller parks have certainly struggled
Yeah.
as of late. We're not in that heyday anymore, and we're kind of
Sure.
unfortunately we might be getting to like the bigger parks just kind of take away any love that the little parks were getting. So
Right.
it's unfortunate, but we'll
It's
see.
unfortunate.
We live in an interesting time in that industry. So
Sure.
I'll talk about that later.
Sure. So, let's move on to our some things to share.
Let's do.
Okay, you want me to go first?
Sure.
Okay, so mine is really just a single quote, but I just wanted to, like, open up the floor for discussion to my old improv partner.
Aw. Yeah.
And then you'll see it in the notes, but I have a way to tie it to stuff I think you want to talk about anyway.
Oh, okay.
Which is just a happy accident of our separate topics coming together.
I think yeah. Go ahead.
So the quote is from my clown training book by John Davison. Cool. He says, "The paradox of clowning is such. There's an obligation to be funny, and yet the means to be funny cannot be willed." So what he's talking about at that point is that clowns, by definition, are there to be funny. Okay. They're there to get laughs. They're there to make people laugh, right?
Sure.
But by being my job is to make you laugh. We dealt with this in improv a little bit. Mm-hmm. You're challenging people to laugh, which can make your job harder because people will say, "I don't want to laugh because you want me to laugh."
Daring them to
and it's
laugh.
You're daring them to laugh, right?
Yeah.
And it's a little different than like in improv because like, but okay. Sorry, I'm trying to get my thoughts together.
No, that's okay.
It's not necessarily that they're gonna be like, "I'm not gonna laugh because you want me to laugh," because a lot of the times they're there to see improv, they're there to see clowning, they're there to whatever. But what I want to talk to you about is like, it's challenging though because people expect something, and that can make your job a lot harder, right? Uh-huh. Like if I put on a red nose and I'm like, "I'm gonna be a clown," people are like, "Okay." They have their preconceptions about what that means to them. Mm-hmm. Whether that means that they think I should come in and make balloon animals, or they think I'm scary because of it.
Stereotyping, yeah.
They basically stereotype, and then they have an idea of what clowning is that I don't have any control over.
Again with the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah.
You think you know everything.
Absolutely. And that's something he even talks about in the book of like, people are going to give you advice that they're like, this is what people like want to see from a clown. And he's like, if they haven't studied clown, don't listen to them because they're going to tell you what they think is clowning. And that's not necessarily what you think is clowning. It's like, yeah.
So
he's like, you need to listen to your audience, but you don't need to listen to individuals telling you what everyone else wants.
Oh, we've certainly gone through this.
Oh, absolutely. Which is why I was like, I got to talk to my buddy about this.
The audience writing the show and like asking for the laugh instead of honestly asking for whatever the scene calls for.
Right. Yeah.
That's a big
thing.
And
that's the thing because like, and he talks about, John Davison talks about like, as a clown, you do kind of want the audience's input. Like if you're not being funny and you're trying to be funny, you need to change directions a little bit. But what we shouldn't be doing is saying, hey, look at me, laugh at me. It's we still need to stay with our intention of, I need to get this thing accomplished.
Definitely. So, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess now's probably the time to talk about when we performed in St. Louis, because this seems relevant.
Yeah.
Like when we were doing improv at the Compass Improv Festival, I guess it wasn't our home crowd, so we didn't have plants that we knew would laugh at us. And I think our style just didn't really.
Well, and I think to an extent, I think that comes back to the fact that we were, and this is something that happens in the Oklahoma City improv community, and I'm sure it happens in St. Louis also. Mm-hmm. But also these smaller communities of improv people. It's kind of like you were saying about theme parks. Like big theme parks are crushing little theme parks.
Yeah.
But like it's slightly different because little improv communities or little comedy communities have an idea of what that entails. And so if you and I are trying to do clown, because at that point it was the first time the Compass Improv Festival was being done for years. Like it had gone away for a long time and they were bringing it back.
Yeah.
And so if their expectation was people who do just keep it as honest as possible and don't do anything wild and don't do any big physicalities and don't do then our clowning is going to stand out.
Yeah, it's gonna be, and maybe not in a comfortable way.
Not in a comfortable way.
Obviously.
And that's the thing. And he talks about that. He says he took a clown show as a trio that he took to a cabaret situation.
Okay.
And he was like, and they bombed because that is not.
Those are.
He was like, they were looking
things.
for, right. And he said they were looking for a cynical kind of comedy. They were looking for, this is why everything sucks. This is why, because that's what comedy tends to do a lot. And that's not what clowns do.
No.
Clowns look for like a purity of joy, which is what we would do, which is why we were clowning this whole time.
We were clowning this whole time, and
and it never landed.
It did not land there. We attempted to adjust there. We adjusted in future shows, but yeah, definitely. Yeah, it can't. I think of that. That classic stance of like yak yak, haha, like holding your hands out and like literally. It seems like you're begging for laughs. That's like the image that's going through my head right now. And I think I've definitely been guilty of that just on my own. But yeah, that's not honest. That's not fun. That's uncomfortable to beg for laughter rather than. So how would you overcome that in your clowning?
Well, in clown, because that's the other thing is like, it's slightly different from what we were doing because we never were committed to clowning. We were trying to do improv from a clown perspective.
We didn't
didn't know that we had the perspective, and so we couldn't lean into that. Because again, clowns listen to the audience. So like if they're not getting laughs, they'll change what they're doing a little bit. Mm-hmm. So there's more give and take than because I think we would hit a point where we were like we had to prove to them we were funny.
Yeah, I think definitely in St. Louis we had the attitude of like, or power through.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. It's been a while. Ooh,
it's been a while. So, but I mean, because like now what we would do is, because clowning is all about failure.
Yes.
Clowns want to fail. Like clowns like are like the whole premise of clowning is that you're failing at something, whether you're failing at the logic of how to get to a thing or you're failing at doing a thing or whatever that is. And so a lot of like training, and if you go to the Philippe Goliath school in France, like that's what he focuses on is like you have to fail. Like you should never feel good about yourself.
So, didn't expect you to take it.
That's not true. That's not true, but it is a thing where it's like I keep reading all this stuff about clowns like should fail, and they recommend that
so clowning like
sorry, I lost my train of thought. Okay. I thought my my audio wasn't recording. To just sit back
I
again.
mean, we talked about that, but I think in improv that's all like that's where our hearts were most full is when we had the freedom to fail.
Sure. And that's what clowns should do. And so like if we were leaning into the clown mode of not getting any laughs, we would adjust for that and try and get the laugh. But then at the end we'd go, yeah, that should have happened because not everything is always going to succeed.
In clowning.
In clowning, yeah. There are lots of clowns, and I should have looked them up, but I didn't know this is where this conversation would go. There are lots of clowns who say, because they're divided. Some clowns would be like, no, don't perform a piece until you know it's going to get laughs. And then other clowns would be like, oh, absolutely. If you don't perform a new piece that gets no laughs, you're not doing it right. Like, you should always be open to the idea that you're going to try something new that doesn't work at all and then move on from there.
Wow.
So, if I had been in the clown mode when we had that experience, I would have just gone, hey, wasn't that great? We failed at something. Let's try something else next time.
Yeah, I think
which would have been much healthier.
Well, when we were at our worst, I would say. I mean, yeah, when we were at our worst, it was when we were terrified of failure.
Yeah.
And I think we would try to I know, and we had different approaches for how to dig ourselves out of that. I went into a weird meta thing where I was commenting on the fact that we were doing improv, which never works.
Yeah.
And then I think you were probably doing the better thing of like just power through, just be more extreme. And
But those two things do not go together.
no, absolutely not. That was the one point we were most at odds, I think, in our approaches. Never really happened again, I don't think. But
No,
to our
that was
credit,
the one time it happened. No, we learned from it and it was great, but it definitely was a thing.
yeah. So we should
So-
have embraced the clown.
Yeah, embrace the
the
clown
failure.
always. Be the clown. That's what I do on my clown Twitter page. Like almost every tweet, I'll be like, I'll bring up a subject. I'll say that subject is clown. # be the clown.
Well, I love that because I mean that's the freedom to fail is a beautiful artistic thing, and
And for clowning, it's not even just about the freedom to fail. It's about finding pleasure in that failure.
Yes.
Like not only do you have the freedom to fail, but like you should be looking for failure because failure is fun. Failure is pure play. Because if you're looking, if your expectation is to fail, then you can't mess that up. Like
Exactly.
you literally get to just play in that and feel the joy of doing a thing without worrying about whether it's right or wrong. It's amazing.
that is cool. Yep, that is art at its best. I think is
Yeah.
when people have fun messing stuff up, and I think that's when we were at
Yeah.
our best, and that seems like where you're going, and I'm very excited
That's
to see.
the direction I'm going, and it's very exciting.
Cool.
So to come back a little bit to the quote so that we can transition.
Yeah.
Look at this. I'm at this transitions down.
We're on the switch tracks.
We're on the yeah,
Right?
we are.
We're transitioning. Okay, I could.
Multi-track drifting.
There's a way to do that better than I did it.
That's all right.
That's
I'll
all
take
right.
that.
But I failed,
So-
and that's okay.
So back. You did it.
We
You
did
the
it.
fail.
Yeah, when roller
Hooray.
coasters fail, it's a
So
dark tragedy.
that was not my transition.
Whoops.
That is not where I thought we were going. So back on the quote of like, it's hard if people have an expectation. It's difficult to meet that expectation, right?
Oh,
What is that? So that's the point of the quote, right? It's difficult to meet the expectation of you must be funny if you're a clown because that's what you're supposed to do. But then it's also like, but I can't just create that. I can't create in you a sense of laughing at me, right?
Yeah.
I can do my best. I can do what I've trained to do and what I've studied and what I know and connect, and it's fine. But like, there's still an expectation that they have, and like, how can you? If I can't meet that, if I don't know what the expectation is, right?
Should you just power through it, like subverting those expectations and like try to hit that?
Sure, that's an option. There's just lots of options, and I don't know what. And there's not necessarily an answer for anyone, but everyone's gonna have a different answer. That's the other thing. Is like one person might need to subvert expectation and give people something they didn't know they wanted, but then another person will, by providing what they want, get the response that the people are like, oh yay, they did the thing.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say, but for transition's sake, what are people trying to accomplish with roller coasters? Like, is there a comparable?
Well, I have.
Because I imagine people come in with an expectation about this is what I want to get from this particular roller coaster when I ride it, and is that hard to meet for coasters? Like, does that make it like you set a? This is what I want.
Yeah, setting expectations and like, that's a good. Now I'm trying to think of rides that I have hyped up so much in my head and did not. That met those expectations or totally subverted my expectations. Yeah, expectations are a big deal in roller coasters, and like how those are either subverted or met can be both very good. I'm thinking of one ride in particular. El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey. This was hyped up. Whoa, 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 whoa. Coughing.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Timestamp.
This ride was, and I mean still is to this day, hyped up as being the best wooden roller coaster, if not in the country, in the world. And I think that overhyping got to me, and I think the whole time I was thinking there's absolutely no way that this ride is going to be as good as everyone makes it out to be. And it was. Like, that was the crazy thing.
That's so nice.
Isn't that?
That feels like a win.
It's a total win. I'm trying to think of rides that didn't meet my expectations, or were substantially lower. Boy. There's got to be some rides that I think were a little overhyped. I'm not really into, like, overrated roller coasters. I'm way more interested in the underrated ones.
Sure.
But, I mean, that has to be true. There's certainly rides that don't... I'll think of them if I come along. All right, so coming back
So,
now.
Kyle, that's what I wanted to share. What have you got? What do you want to share with me?
Let's talk about the Great Coaster War and its impact on its impact on the current landscape and kind of how because I think it does definitely.
The Great Coaster War.
That is definitely a term made up by me. But I think
that's so disappointing and so exciting at the same time.
I think coaster enthusiasts, once I talk about it, people will know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. The Great Coaster War. I would say that this is the point of my life where I really started to realize that I love learning about this junk and love just taking in all the information and just absorbing that. I just absorbed this knowledge at that age. This would be in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. And this is the Great Coaster War between Cedar Point and Six Flags. Mostly Six Flags Magic Mountain, but Six Flags kind of as a whole. Mostly that. Anyway, so Cedar Point is this, if you haven't heard of it, it's the greatest place for a roller coaster enthusiast such as myself. I think it is a amusement park. You've actually been there, Alex.
I have. I think I rode one roller coaster while I was there.
You did. We talked about it a little bit last week. So Cedar Point is in Sandusky, Ohio. It is on this peninsula that is jutting out into Lake Erie. It is a beautiful, very picturesque setting. And it's just awesome. And Six Flags Magic Mountain, which we talked about a lot last week, that's where X is. That is in Southern California, just north of Los Angeles. Also a very picturesque setting. It's in the hills. There's literally a quote-unquote magic mountain in the middle of the park. Beautiful hill surrounded by this wonderful Southern California mountains. Beautiful, beautiful place. But they took things a little differently. So in the early 2000s, these two parks were duking it out to have the most roller coasters in one park. And the way they went about this definitely, I think, helped solidify these two companies' current identities. Cedar Point is owned by Cedar Fair. That is a combination of Cedar Point and Valley Fair. Valley Fair is an amusement park in Minneapolis. And it is, with being the name, one of the two names in this company's name, Valley Fair, definitely, I think, gets the shaft a lot. They are not treated as well by their parent company, certainly as Cedar Point. Cedar Point's the crown jewel, and they put that on display in the early 2000s. So it started, I have rcdb.com ready to go, and I think it really started with Millennium Force and Goliath. Those two roller coasters, Millennium Force at Cedar Point and Goliath at Magic Mountain. So Goliath opened a few months before, in 2000, and it is about, I think it's 255 feet. Huge. It's a big, honking, towering roller coaster, and I believe at the time it was the world's tallest. If not, it was very close. But Millennium Force, which was opened a few months later at Cedar Point, was the world's tallest at the time. That is the first Giga Coaster, meaning that it is over 300 feet, and it is awesome. So this started like an arms race of like who can build the bigger, badder, crazier, wackier thing. And that lasted for a good 5-6-ish years. And these two parks went insane. So I'll just go one at a time. So Magic Mountain, after Goliath, built X2, which we talked about last week. They built Scream, which is a big, it's called a floorless roller coaster. It's just a big, crazy looping roller coaster, and there's, on the train, that just means there's no floor, so your feet are dangling above the track. It's kind of cool. And they built that in 2003, and then in 2006, they built Tatsu, which is a flying roller coaster, meaning that you, the track faces the ground, and the trains, you're basically in a flying position. You kind of like, you get on the ride with the track above you, and you sit down, your feet are like dangling, and then before the train launches out the station, the seats will move up and lock you into a flying position, and they're really, really cool. I love those rides. Moving on to Cedar Point in this period, in 2002, they built Wicked Twister, which is a launching impulse inverted roller coaster. Fairly simple design. There are many similar rides to this. But then, in 2003, the very next year, they built Top Thrill Dragster, which is a launching roller coaster that launches 425 feet. I'm going to make sure I get that right. I'm pretty sure that's it. 420 feet, excuse me. Straight up, launches straight up into the air. So this is the first 400-foot roller coaster. So in a span of 3 years, Cedar Point opened the world's first 300-foot roller coaster and then 400-foot roller coaster. And then in 2007, which is I think when this coaster war started to simmer down, Cedar Point built Maverick, which is a multiple launch. It's smaller. It's certainly not the tallest and fastest, but it's cool and fun, and it has 2 launches. It's just an awesome ride. It's my fiance's favorite roller coaster. So, where am I going with this? Yes. So, this one.
I'm just along for the ride.
I know you've been very nice and just plotting. So where am I going with this? This was the point where these two companies wanted to outdo each other, and I think if you're gonna have a winner between these two, we all win. Let's just first put that out. We, as general public, as enthusiasts, we all get to reap the benefits of these two parks going crazy. Because this is crazy as far as like general trends of like big amusement parks, other than like, you know, the Disneys and Universals. Those are on a different tier. This stretch of time was bananas. You had two record breakers as far as speed and height with Millennium Force and Top Thrill Dragster, and then Goliath was right there. X2 was the world's first fourth dimension roller coaster. They just went back and forth. And I think if you were going to pick a winner between the two, I think in the long run, you've got to say that Cedar Point and Cedar Fair in general, I think handled themselves a little better, because I think towards the end, they showed restraint. And now it sounds crazy after they built the world's first 300 and 400 foot coaster, but after that, Six Flags kind of kept going, and they don't do that anymore. And it's become very obvious that in Cedar Point showing restraint towards the end, after they did Top Thrill Dragster, there was a 4-year gap between rides, and I think that was good for them. What does this mean in the current landscape? I think the way these two companies handled themselves after this big burst of coaster production has been really interesting. The way Cedar Fair has gone about it is they are more likely, I think, to show restraint for a bit. They will let parks breathe once they get new rides, and they'll let that. There are certain parks in their chain that have not seen new additions in quite some time. This is starting to change, but as that sounds bad from like a general public standpoint, like you want your home park to get more stuff. But I think in the long run, what they've done is focus more on making their parks good, nice places to be. Where Six Flags, they kind of do things on the cheap now. And that kind of sucks. They, their business model since this time has been everybody gets, every one of their parks, which is a lot, gets a new thing every year. That's been their trend for the last few years. The problem with that is all of their parks get, I don't want to sound disrespectful, but sometimes cheap crap.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought when you said I don't want to sound disrespectful, you were gonna lean into the not sounding disrespectful. Okay.
No, I
in.
was subverting expectation.
That was nice. That was good.
Yeah. Now, this is what brings me to something I wrote down that I think goes back to the more artistic, performative aspect. Inspiration coming from limitations. And like quality within restraint. I think we see that in good television, just in good art in general. I think when you put like very specific parameters around something, the creativity that goes into that, I think is really interesting. I think I see it in, especially in comedy now. I think comedy used to be, had its place in film, in a big way, in a much bigger way than it does now. I don't think we see a lot of great comedy films as much anymore. There's certainly exceptions, but I think good comedy in the 22-minute format of television has been really good, and I think it's taken off in a way. And I think that might have something to do with its limitations, like squeezing funny into 22 minutes. And I think a way that the amusement park industry has done that is that Six Flags now, again, don't want to be disrespectful, but because they're trying to be a little cheaper, a little more frugal, they have done some really, really cool things. And that is one way where I think Six Flags has outshined Cedar Fair. Sometimes. They're certainly duking it back and forth in a different way now, and I like that. I like that there's good competitions, but the way they go about it is very different. When Cedar Fair adds a new roller coaster, it is going to be a big, cool, new, fancy thing that is generally, I think, their theming has gotten a lot better in their newer roller coasters. Six Flags has never, ever been much on theming, even when they were spending a lot more money on their rides. And that's fine. They kind of leave that up to Disney and Universal, which is fine. And so a big way this has, I think, really affected the industry is that in 2011, so this was a good, 4 or 5-ish years after that big coaster boom, coaster war thing had died down, Six Flags went to a then new kind of unknown company called Rocky Mountain Construction. And I'm not wearing my RMC shirt. I was last week. But Rocky Mountain Construction, or RMC as they're known, is awesome. And they are crushing it as far as the new rides go. And Six Flags was the one who gave them their first shot. RMC does a really, really, really cool thing that I love, in that they will take old wooden roller coasters from parks and they will spiff them up in ways that had never been seen before. Their first roller coaster was the new Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas. Texas Giant was a old wooden roller coaster built in early 90s, I believe. And at the time, like most new rides, very well liked, but just over time, and this is just a thing with big wooden roller coasters in general, they take a lot of upkeep. They tend to get very rough if they're not retracked fairly often. And so it just declined in popularity. So by 2011, Six Flags had this idea to bring in Rocky Mountain Construction. And instead of retracking the ride, just like rebuilding the existing wooden track, they put on steel tracks, entirely steel, boxy shaped, they call it their iBox track. And that track did not exactly match 1-to-1 the track that was there. So, which hadn't been done before. There have been a lot of companies that will totally retrack and really try to maintain very faithful, try to be very faithful as to what the track was before they put in new ones. This one, they just threw that rule out the window. They will take the existing wooden structure of old rides and put in their new track, and their track might be similar to the previous version, but hopefully it won't, based on what I've seen. They make their tracks do way different things. They bank crazy. They're steel tracks, so they're smoother, guaranteed to be smoother, especially in the long run. And they will add sometimes inversions where the ride goes upside down, is what that means. It's a term of the... that's one of those... Alex, you're rubbing, you're I love the words.
I love words.
I'm
here for the words.
An inversion where a ride goes upside down. So they'll add crazy elements to old wooden structures, old wooden roller coaster structures. And the reason they do this is because it's way, way, way less expensive. That's becoming slightly less so now because RMC has gained a reputation because they make really, really good stuff. They will take.
Sure.
So I really like this trend because it takes it doesn't get rid of the history of the old ride. It's literally called New Texas Giant. It breathes new life into classic rides, while also in another way, you get to open what is essentially an entirely new ride. One of RMC's current projects going on in Florida, the ride that they're building on the old wooden structure of a ride called Goliath is unrecognizable, essentially, to what used to be there. So then it's like, is this a... It definitely is a new roller coaster, but like with incorporating as much of the old as they can. And I think that's really cool. And now Cedar Fair's gotten on this this trend, and they've hired RMC, but only fairly recently. And they're just making the best stuff. That's really all I can say. Anyway, kind of synthesizing this whole thing, I think the lessons learned from the Coaster Wars and how expensive that was, I think definitely turned into one of my favorite trends now in the industry, in taking old rides and bringing new life into them. That's what RMC's doing. And now there's another company, Great Coasters International, also known as GCI. And I think partly because they don't want RMC coming and messing with their old rides, because they've done that. They've added, RMC's adding new track to old GCI rides. GCI has now, as of last summer, they've introduced their version of a steel track that they might in the future. They haven't done this yet, but I think they're positioning themselves to be a direct competitor to RMC in the future. And I think we're all going to be winners because of that. It's a really fun time. That it's just funny because I think this was born out of a time, or born out of an inclination to cut costs. But as a result, we get literally the greatest roller coasters in the world. I think that's great. Because I think
that's really cool.
Yeah, RMC did in 2018 at Cedar Point. They rebuilt or gave the, what some enthusiasts gave the Iron Horse treatment to a ride called Mean Streak, which was very similar to Texas Giant. But you can tell from 2011 to 2018, RMC learned a lot. Even though they were originally very similar rides. Steel Vengeance is in another stratosphere. They added huge height. They added height to the ride. They added huge outward banking turns, weird elements that have just never been seen, 0G barrel rolls all over the place. They did crazy stuff with Mean Streak, and now Steel Vengeance, as it's known, is you'd be hard pressed to find people in the coaster enthusiast community who don't rank that as, if not number one, top three in the world, hands down. It is a fantastic ride, and I have been on it, and it is up there. It is amazing. So, yeah, when limitations are brought up, sometimes great creativity can thrive, and we've seen some of the best roller coasters ever made as a result. So that's awesome. There's my rant.
That's really cool. That's good.
Cool. Any thoughts?
I mean, yeah, that's something, I don't mean to make this whole episode about our old improv experiences, But that's something you and I always experienced because you specifically really liked short form over
Yeah.
long form because it demanded restriction. It was like, this is what we're doing.
Oh, I'm
What can we do
so
around
glad you
that?
found that to tie in. Yes.
So like, and I mean, and that's just, I mean, that's obviously something I've been studying and clowning a lot too. Is like, if you like, one of the things that they talk about again in this training book is if everything's too ridiculous, there's no way to make it ridiculous. So you want to keep it as real as possible, so your ridiculous things are the funny thing,
Yeah.
right? So like it's that where like restrict yourself on what you're allowed to do, and that'll just open up all of these venues to like, because he would say like if you're doing a chair routine, don't try and turn the chair into a gun and use it like that. Like use it as a chair and see how many ways you can mess with that. Like let it be what it is, and then that's the game. Is like how do you mess up sitting down in a chair?
Nice.
Not how do you make the chair something that you can mess up even bigger.
Oh, that's an interesting
So-
restriction. Yeah, I like, putting limits on that. I think
Yeah.
beautiful things come back. Yeah, that's definitely what it is. I think, long form improv is the big budget stuff, and short form is, RMC. They're
Yeah,
definitely
which is
working
amazing.
within limitations, and of course that happens all the time. Like you work within like limitations of like plots of land, but
Sure.
this is taking something old and putting a new twist on it in a totally different way. And I just really like that. That's a fun thing that's happening.
That's really cool.
Cool. All right.
All right.
Anything else?
Week's work.
Let's talk about our week's work. Thanks for
Let's talk about
listening.
our
I
week's
did kind of
Yeah.
ramble on that, but that's I'm happy I was able to tie those in as well as I did. Of like,
yeah, no, I mean it was definitely, I mean that's what this is, right? Like I'm here for the things you want to say. And so yeah, no, it's definitely interesting.
yeah.
It's just one of those things where it's like I don't have anything to add because I don't have any frame of reference, so I'm just like taking it in and being like, yeah,
You
yeah.
I know, and I'm trying to, because you just really didn't ride anything at Cedar Point, but it was at Cedar Point.
No. I did not.
And you have,
But I did ride a wooden roller coaster there.
you sure
so.
did.
Yes, you did.
You
You did
sure
ride that
did.
roller coaster, didn't you?
I love it. No, I love your perspective you bring to it.
Yeah.
That's fun, and definitely bring it into an artistic place has been a fun, creative challenge, and I like it. So let's talk about
Yeah.
week's work. Alex,
Week's work.
what do you
Want me to
got?
go?
What do you got?
So this week, what I'm working on is I think I mentioned it last week. I don't know if I said it specifically, but I'm working specifically right now on a basically it's a series of routines. I guess it's a street show, but it's basically a series of routines that I can kind of cycle in and out of to perform on the street to raise money for homeless people.
Nice.
Basically,
Wonderful.
I'm
that is
yeah,
incredibly
it's
noble
something
cause. Please do that.
something I've just really it's been heavy on my heart lately, and so I'm just gonna try and do something about it.
Well, that's
So, but I have to do it in a way that I can, because like I'm not a person who's gonna go like politically try and get the situation changed for these people, because that's not who I am. So I'm gonna try and just raise money on the street as
that's
a clown.
A very direct approach. There's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that. Yeah.
So that's the thing. So anyway, my week's work is to work. I'm working on 3 specific routines this week. I'd like to probably have 5 or 6 that I can kind of cycle in and out of over the course of my time on the street, but like 3 specific things that I'm working on this week. So, and you'll appreciate that they're all of them are juggling routines
nice,
right
juggling.
now, because that's my kind of my focus right now, because that's easy to do. Because like a lot of clowning requires like props, and it's easy for me to just have like 3 or 4 juggling things with me, and that's easy to travel with.
Just let me say, public record, put this out there. I am incredibly impressed with your juggling abilities, because I've been juggling. I learned to juggle when I was very young, and then I come back and watch you juggle, and you had just started learning, and you were right there with me. And I was like, damn.
Yeah.
You are.
And I'm slowly getting better. It's only one of those things where it's like I started doing it just kind of like, that's a thing clowns do. I kind of stereotyped. It was like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then as I've started doing it, and there was a month or two there where I was putting 2 to 3 hours of work in a day on it.
I could tell.
And so
Well, that's cool.
as I started doing it, I've wanted to get better at juggling and secondary to clowning. Instead of being like, I want to juggle so I can clown, I was like, I want to clown, but I also want to juggle.
Yes. And I can tell
but
you're doing
so I'm
some
working
very
on
creative stuff. Well,
Yeah.
cool. Anyway, sorry.
So I'm working on 3 routines that I just wanted to tell you about because I think you'll appreciate. One is just like a real short like clowning style, but like teaching how to juggle.
Okay.
So I can like teach someone that's walking by how to juggle in 5 minutes.
That sounds
like
delightful.
The basics, obviously, like they're not going to be nailing it by the end, but like where they can go home and practice if they want, but it's also just funny for people to watch. So that's one that I'm working on. The second one I'm working on is called the Mischievous Ball.
I think I've seen you kind of sort of practice this.
Kind of practicing that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I love
so
this.
basically I'll have 2, like, I'll demonstrate for people watching.
He's getting up. He's away from his mic. This is a video thing, but it's
So-
totally for my benefit, really.
Just, this is supposed to be for Kyle, but, so I have 2, like, higher quality black and white juggling bags.
Yes.
And then I have, like, a lower quality, really thin, like, colorful one that's, like, red, green, yellow, blue.
Yeah, but it's gross and not... I bet we're going to learn a lesson.
It's so basically what the Mischievous Ball is like I pull out the 2 that are the same, and then I pull out the third one, and I'm like, well, that's weird and that's different. Whatever, I can juggle with anything. No. And so I start juggling, but then like the weird ball never goes where I want it to.
Yeah.
And so I'll just be like doing a standard juggle, and the weird ball will shoot off to the left, and I have to try and catch it, or I have to like just toss it and have to pick it up off the floor.
Oh, this is
and
different.
So it's like,
You've evolved this since the last time you've...
Yeah. No, I've been putting some thought into
this
it.
Is great.
So that's a thing. That's going to be fun. But then the third one, which you'll appreciate specifically,
I appreciate all of them.
Well, sure. But you'll appreciate this one because it's called the Bell Game.
Okay. Yes, the Bell Game. That was a great...
Yeah, it's based on... So basically, I'll start juggling like a basic pattern, and every time someone rings like a little bell, I have to switch my pattern. And like, which is like kind of impressive at first, but when without fail a child or someone just starts dinging the bell and the balls just shoot into the air and I can't do anything about it, that's where the clowning comes in.
Which is the delightful part. That sounds great.
Which is the delightful part.
The Bell Game being one of our favorite improv games.
The Bell Game, without a doubt, was our favorite, particularly when we decided that you could do it with 2 people, which I've never seen done before.
Yeah, so
where we ding for the other person, and that was one of the most fun experiences of my life.
Yeah, for those who don't know, it's also known as change. You probably saw it.
Change or new choice.
If you ever watched Whose Lines Is It Anyway? You do a scene, someone says a line, and then if there's a host or whoever doesn't like that line, they can ding a bell.
It's a change.
And you have to change that line completely until the host or whoever has the bell likes what you said, and you continue the scene. And we figured out we got 2 bells, and we just dinged each other
with our feet. We'd step on them.
Just step down.
Yeah,
and that
was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun. So cool. I'm glad you incorporated that.
So anyway, so my week's work is to practice those 3 things and get them into a performative level.
Cool. Great.
So
that sounds great.
Yeah.
I enjoy the evolution you've already made that bit. Keep it going. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So my week's work. Really this week I've got to do Instacart and Shipped and those gig economy jobs. I gotta just do that pretty much all week because I'm kind of in this. I'm in this point where it's like I've laid down a lot of groundwork for videography, and I'm slowly getting clients trickling in, but that's going to be a cascading process that takes a while. So groundwork is set. So right now I need to make money. So I'm going to pretty much 9 to 5, be delivering groceries or whatever, just
Yeah.
odd jobs and just making money that way.
Straight up, I'm going to do Shipped. Like, I have a job that I have to leave for at 3.
Oh, geez.
So like,
that's like in 10
no.
minutes.
yeah, but like that's my point. Is like, I got you. I respect
Oh,
it.
yeah. No, got to do that. So, yeah, we're both kind of in that same boat. But in my downtime, practice, because I want to, I got a slider, a camera slider. It's a nice one. It's a used one, but it seems to be working pretty well. And what I want to do is there is a potential future client who's interested in. She's a jazz singer. Her name is Alyssa. I'll give her name, Alyssa Allgood. She's a fantastic jazz singer in Chicago, and she wants to put up like a press kit and make like a little video thing. And I really want to help her do that. And in doing so, I want to shoot an interview with her, but not just a regular, because I know I did that when I worked for the news all the time. I want to spiff this up a little bit. So I want to have a B cam, a second camera that moves on that slider. And I don't have any automated motorized thing, which you can totally get, but they're very expensive. So my goal this week is to practice tight shots with a slider that I move manually, which is very difficult. I kind of just sort of just put it on just to see if I can do it, and it was way more difficult than I thought. Not impossible, but like keeping a
that's gonna take some practice.
Keeping a tight shot while there is motion and doing like a parallax slide back and forth shot slowly enough to where I'm satisfied, because it's got to be the right speed. If it's too fast, they look stupid. So going slowly, practicing, so going to be practicing shooting interviews, basically.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, other than when I'm not delivering groceries, be practicing shooting interviews, because that's going to be coming up. She's recording Alyssa Allgood, recording an album. Look her up. She's amazing.
That's awesome.
Shout out.
Shout out.
All right. That's my week's work.
All right, cool. Respect. That's your week's work. That's my week's work. Closing thoughts?
Let's go ride some roller coasters and do so with a clown nose.
All right, thanks. We'll see you guys next week.
All right. Outro.
We just had a really, really good time. Talked about things that make us smile and make us feel sublime. Juggling balls and silly shoes, barrel rolls and loop-de-loops. We just talked about clowns and coasters.